Welcome one, welcome all to this edition of the Lindsey Show. In today's episode, I am going to be interviewing Michael Trefel, who is an executive coach, an entrepreneur, a husband, and a father to two amazing girls. My favorite thing about this conversation was we started out with one set of questions and we just allowed the conversation to take us where it goes. So we start out talking about how what we focus on expands, how our mindset matters, how transformative experiences in our lives and intentional transformation are possible. And then we meander and talk about Alexander Hamilton and Ron Chernow. I ask him some questions about being a girl dad and get his advice on how he goes about raising empowered women in today's culture. And then after that, I sit back and I talk to you a bit about how the language that we choose, the conscious words that we speak over our lives really matter in the long run. Let's get to the show. Welcome to the Lindsey Show, a podcast that helps you find fulfillment amidst chaos. On this show, I interview thought leaders, doctors, creatives, spiritual gurus, and game changers who inspire you to pursue your dreams, overcome obstacles, and leave your mark. Your mindset is extraordinarily important. The words that you say matter. And so when we think about the way that we think about ourselves, the way that we think about the world, we have certain beliefs about the world around us, and we pay attention to certain things depending on how our beliefs communicate to us. One of the things that many of us struggle with, probably all of us struggle with at some point in time, is limiting beliefs, limitations on what we think is possible for ourselves and our lives. I was listening to an amazing Oprah Super Soul conversation the other day with Jane Fonda and her daughter, Mary Williams. And Mary said that getting to know Jane made her think about the future for the first time in your life. That was an amazing thing for me to hear because, guys, I was raised solidly middle class. I have my own privilege. And the thought of the future was always there in my mind. It was always present for me. I always knew I was going to graduate high school. I always knew I was going to go to college. I always knew that there was a future ahead of me. So to realize that there were people in this very same world that I share with them who have never thought beyond the end of the week, and they had a limitation that was that profound in their life, that was hard for me to hear. But I'm glad I heard it because it puts into perspective the impact that I can have on the greater world around me. So as I was preparing for my interview today with Michael Trefel, I came across a wonderful article by Tony Robbins about where do our beliefs come from. So our beliefs come from a lot of places. Our environment, how we were raised, the people that shared love with us, the events that happen in our lives. How do we talk to ourselves about how our marriage day is supposed to go, about how the birth of a child, or how do you know that that big promotion is just right around the corner? The other thing is our knowledge, the knowledge that we have about the world around us. Are we a lifelong learner, or do we say I've learned as much as I'm going to learn? The next way that we craft our beliefs is with what has happened to us in the past, our past results. When we started something, oh my gosh, was it a failure or was it a success? And then the next thing is our future vision about what we expect to happen in the future. So Michael is my guest today. He has been a former Wall Street executive. He was one of the youngest executive at Lehman Brothers, and he left it all behind to become an entrepreneur. He is a dedicated husband and a dad to two amazing daughters. So shout out to all the girl dads out there. He is an eternal optimist who believes that together, through coaching and consulting, we achieve anything and that we can change the world in the process. I love his perspective on life. I've loved him from the very first moment that he showed up because of the No Limits book behind him. So, Michael Trefel, welcome to the Lindsey Elmore Show.
Thanks, Lindsey. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, so
very excited.
Tell us your story. You started on, you didn't start on Wall Street. You somehow made your way to Wall Street and you left it all behind. That seems like a crazy thing to do.
Yeah. No, it was a crazy thing to do, but never really looked back, and it was amazing. So I started trading futures and commodities and things when I was 18 or 19. And then from there, I worked at the Boiler Room, which was back then, still existed, so stock trading and stuff, and then made my way through Goldman, some funds, and then ended up at Lehman in the strategy department and worked for Lehman for 12 years. And while I succeeded at what I did as a job, I wasn't succeeding internally, right? It wasn't fulfilling. I wasn't happy with what I was doing. Even though we built amazing teams and I loved that aspect of working with people, it wasn't the environment that I wanted longer term. You talked about the future. I wanted a different future for myself and for my family. I wanted to travel more. I wanted to spend more time at home. And I really wasn't able to do that working on Wall Street.
And
so,
I'm assuming that this was a fairly lucrative profession that you left behind.
Yes, it was.
So,
yes,
okay, so continue.
Yeah. And my view on money changed as well. And we can talk a little bit about that. But I wanted more for my family. I wanted me for my family. Right. And so I came home and I talked to my wife, and we made a mutual decision that it's fine. Let's do something different and grow together in a different way. And I went cold turkey. So I don't recommend it to anybody. Build the foundation so you can leave successfully. I did it like this, and I left. And I left actually 6 months before everything imploded.
Yeah, right? I was going to say, Lehman Brothers is no more,
Well, I have a running joke that it's no more because I left, and I apologize to people for it.
I love that. I love that. Because you were putting in the hours, putting in the time, you had the commitment, but you weren't fulfilled.
Yeah.
And
I like working hard, so.
Yes, I know. So many people come to me as potential business coaching clients, and they're like, I just want to make $1 million and it not to take any work. And I'm like, good luck with that. I am not the appropriate coach for you.
Yeah, exactly. And so I like working hard. I've always did since I was a kid. And that, by the way, comes from, it's funny, you talked about money and kind of the idea of the future and stuff like that. So I grew up in a different environment where money wasn't abundant, right? And so you've learned on that, and you learn to work hard in order to survive, but you don't talk about thriving. So, I had a path that I kind of carved for myself, and I wanted to go to school. That was important. My parents instilled that to me. Education was important. Hard work was important. And I went through schooling. I got my MBA, and then I left afterwards, and I went completely different directions. I went into real estate, and I went into entrepreneurship.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
And I wanted to find a different way of fulfillment and learn from it. It was a great experience. I started in real estate in the crash of 2008. Awesome.
Nice. Good timing. Perfect.
Good timing.
Perfect
good
universal
timing.
timing.
Easy.
Yeah.
But I had the work ethic, right? So you work harder. And the beauty of kind of having tunnel vision a little bit is that you don't know better. So I didn't know that there was a better environment for real estate, and I started and succeeded in the crash. And if you can succeed through crash, just like what's going on today, right around us, the quarantine and everything else, if you can succeed through this and be okay with it, you open up so much more for your future.
Yeah,
And
I completely agree with you. It's, you know, I was talking with my partner the other day about it, and it's like, we craft our own reality,
yes,
whatever that is. And so, we have a choice in this moment.
mm-hmm.
Is this a lockdown where I am not allowed to do anything? Or is this a moment of respite? Is it a moment of relaxation and easement? Is just a completely different perspective. Okay, Michael,
Yeah.
total squirrel brain deviation.
So
Is
cool.
that the Ron Chernow book of Alexander Hamilton over your head?
Yes, it is.
So, all right, what a legendary figure. I was just listening to Hamilton last night, and I realized that there are so many parallels between the righteous indignation and like the power to succeed that Alexander Hamilton, he embodied it. The like, I will break the mold, and the vision and the belief that he had for his life is so important right now. So what is your connection with Alexander Hamilton? You're a finance guy. He was a finance guy, all the things. So just, I don't even know, just talk to me about that.
You know what, to be honest, I just like reading. I like biographies of interesting people. I have different ones behind me. I have lots of books. I read a lot. And I like biographies. I like learning from people, their viewpoints of life, whether I agree with them or disagree. But, I have Einstein in there. I have Rudy Giuliani in there, for example, a couple of historical figures and things, Jack Welch and things. And, some things I agree with, some things I don't. I don't like breaking the mold, actually, aspect of it. What I do like is shifting the reality around where you are and really paving your future, because I truly believe that everyone has the ability to a better future, especially where we are. There's so many opportunities. It's, do we want to close them off and kind of break everything apart, or do we want to kind of break the limiting beliefs of where we are and create something better? And I think with Hamilton, he was looking at what people were telling him that he must do, or the way the world is, and he can take it in a different way and create something for the future that's, incredibly long lasting, and create a better environment for himself and for the country overall.
I mean, he changed the world. He completely changed the world. And the fact that it took, a couple hundred years and a musical to make us all realize that is astonishing, because he took the worst possible circumstances and turned them in to being in every history book, writing the Federalist Papers, like writing things that really transformed our reality. And so, all right, so you mentioned limiting beliefs, and that's what you work with your clients on. You got John Maxwell's book, No Limits, back behind you. Talk to us about how limiting beliefs hold us back.
Well, thank you for queuing that up. Actually, that's great. And the thing is that I love about what you were mentioning in the beginning of the show about Tony Robbins and kind of limitations. There are different limitations that are put on us. Think about money for a second, right? And I do this with a lot of clients when we talk about money. Think about a saying, and you can finish it up, right? Money is the root of all
evil.
Right, but that's not actual quote.
And it's not even true.
It's not. And that's the beauty of it, right? So we are culturally and societally groomed to think about money in that way. But it's not money is the root of all evil. It's the love of money
It's the
is the root.
lust for money
Yes,
that is the
yes,
root of all evil.
right. So we have to challenge these kind of preconceptions about money, about wealth, about growth. I do the same thing with, personal responsibility. You can achieve anything you want. We live in an environment that has so much opportunity, but you can focus on the opportunity in front of you, or you can focus on the blockage. Think about COVID, right? We started that conversation too with the quarantine. So you can talk about it. Oh my God, when is this nightmare is going to end? Right. And bring in a lot of negative and negativity into it. You talk about it as nightmare. You talk about it as chaos and all this other stuff. Here's an interesting quote, and I kind of jump around a little bit as well, but chaos and opportunity in the Chinese symbols is the same.
I love that. I
Right.
love that.
So when I coach, especially now when I talk to people, and what if we shift your perspective? What if you look at what's out there and say, okay, let me find the 5 or 10 amazing things that are great about what's going on right now. Because in every darkest corner, in everything that's going on, if you train your mind, if you train your activities on a daily basis to focus on the positives, you start seeing more and more and more of the positive. Right. So let's talk about the quarantine. People are talking about it as nightmare. People are talking about it, how horrible it is. People are listening to the news all day long. You wake up, you turn on the news, your day is done.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh my God.
You go.
I can't. I broke up with the news. I used to
Yes.
listen to the news about 10 minutes a day. Can't even do that no more. Can't even.
It's spiral, right? So it's a negative spiral. What happens is your mind starts processing it, and you start seeing the world through the filter of the news. So everything is negative, and it affects your whole kind of cycle, right? Your mindset, your attitude, your behavior. So you start contracting, you start going into this scarcity mode, not just monetary, but everything. You start herding mentality, right? You start buying, 20 cases of toilet paper. As an
Because you
example.
think that's going to
But
save you.
but that's the scarcity mentality that's going on. Or you can be intentional. Speaking of John Maxwell, with him, he talks about being intentional, being purposeful in what you do. So if you are purposefully telling yourself, okay, yes, that's going on, we accept the reality, and yet, is there something positive? So I'm a huge believer in gratitude, living in gratitude. And so I do it with my kids. I have 2 daughters, they're 5 and 8. And, we say our gratitude. And what I found amazing, that in the middle of all of this, you know what they're grateful for? The quarantine. Not the COVID, but the quarantine, because I'm home.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so they find beauty and amazement. Like, they want this to continue because I'm home all day long and I work from home. I set up a home office. And so I started more and more thinking about it that way. And when I talk to my clients, what can you find positive about it? Well, I just finished the training for 6 weeks for direct marketing. Well, your audience is home. They're captive audience. They're sitting in front of the computer. That's a great opportunity for you to talk to them.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about social distancing. I think it's the wrong word. We can be physically distanced. Don't be socially distanced. Connect with people. You know what? We talked more over Zoom with people that we've had in the past. So we actually connecting with people, right? It's more positive.
Yeah. Yeah, we have an opportunity right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I've struggled, as I think everyone has struggled this spring, but there's something about taking ownership and saying, this is what I am going to do
100%.
with this time, versus feeling like you are captive and forced to behave in a certain way, because nobody is telling you how your brain needs to operate in this moment. It is a time that we can say, okay, well, I want to do something different. And so, you mentioned in your discussion that one of the things that you are all about is really helping people to move past their limiting beliefs and to live a life of gratitude. And you also mentioned that you encourage people to live a life of curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
And so, talk to me about that. Like, how do you instill that into your daughters? How do you and your wife get curious about new projects?
Well, great example. My oldest, she's 8. She loves reading. She reads a lot, and one of the books that she just finished is this. I think it's 365 stories for rebel girls, and it's all about female empowerment and all this other stuff, and it's really cool. She loves Mary Curie, and she loves this quote from Mary Curie that the world is. I think I'm going to butcher it, but it's the world basically is fear is not to be kind of feared; it's to be understood, right? So if you understand it, then you're no longer feared of it. And I love that because if you're curious about something, let's say you're frustrated about whatever is going on, you're mad about something, you're frustrated that somebody is not doing something, right? If you shift into curiosity and you ask yourself, okay, I'm going to be curious about the subject. I'm going to be curious why this person thinks the way they are. What I think is missing from the world today is the ability to talk to people who think differently, right?
Yes.
So stay curious about why people think the way they are. Try to process that and understand we all learn something from it. And what happens is when you stay in curiosity and start to see things from a different light, anger goes away, frustration goes away. You're more grateful for the opportunity to learn. This is where the growth mindset comes in. Always be that learner from every environment. I want to be curious about this quarantine because I want to see what can I learn from it? What benefits can this produce? Right? I can go in and say that pollution is down around the world because factories are shut down. Like, you can find positive things. And what happens with it is that you start picking out more and more positives, and your brain starts picking that out from the universe. We talked a little bit about RAS, right? And I want to kind of talk about
Yeah, I was just about to ask you, like,
yeah.
how does your brain focus on
Yeah,
that?
so we have this reticular activation system, which is in the back of our
The
our brain,
RAS, yeah?
RAS. And what happens that the best visual is kind of buying a car, right? You go in and you decide, okay, I'm going to buy this red BMW that I was looking for, and I go in, I buy that car, and I drive it off the lot, and all of a sudden, the world is full of red BMWs.
You'd never seen a red
I've
BMW
never
in your
seen one.
entire
Yeah.
life until you bought one.
Until you buy one. And the way that works is because we have so many data points thrown on us from the world, right? We have social media, the news, the television, just all this information hitting us. And how do we, on a primal level, understand what's important and what's not? Because our brain can really only process about 150 data points at a time, and we get thousands of data points thrown at us. So we were designed beautifully with this primal instinct of how to survive. How do we know that the dinosaur is dangerous and the squirrel isn't, for example, right? That's part of RAS. That's what it does. So if we are staying gratitude and we're staying curious right now in the world, our energy shifts, our frequency, the way we resonate shifts, right? And what happens, we start seeing, we talked about positivity. If you start intentionally thinking about positive things, you're going to see more positives. If you let your mind go negative, that's what you're going to see in the world. So when you mention, breaking the mold and kind of seeing things for what it is, if you allow society to dictate how you think about money, you're always going to live in a scarcity mindset that money is the root of all evil.
And that money is finite.
And it's finite, right? And that money is finite, right? That opportunity is finite. But if you shift the environment and stay curious about objects, something happens, and some people can be completely broken down, and others can find beauty and joy and growth, launch pad off of that. And the language, you talked about language, the same thing. You talked about language in the beginning, how we talk to ourselves. There's a Japanese proverb: be careful how you speak to yourself, because the warrior inside is listening.
One of my best friends, Rosie, summed it up so well. Whenever you find yourself in that negative self-talk of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm not this, I'm not that, she stops and she says, don't talk about my friend that way. And it's been so powerful in like when I'm with my friends and they start like, I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm still in this dead end relationship, I hate my job. Don't talk about my friend like that. It's a way to immediately put the brakes on how we talk to ourselves.
Yeah. And you become intentional about it. If you know Jim Quick, for example, who has this quick brain, brilliant guy online, you can look him up, Jim Quick. He talks about language in an interesting way. And, this is where curiosity comes from. We wake up in the morning and gratitude, and we wake up in the morning and we go, oh, I got to go to the gym. I got to do some things. I got to go to work. I gotta change one letter in that. And get right.
Yeah,
So instead of
things.
I got to do something, I get to do something.
Yeah.
Now you can be excited about it. Now you can bring passion to it. Now you can be happy about it. I get to go to the gym. I get to spend more time with my family. Instead of I got to sit home and quarantine, I get to work from home and spend more time with my kids and my wife and do things at home. It's amazing. Now you have this gratitude, and all of a sudden you will, if you're intentional about it daily, you'll start seeing more opportunities come your way because you're open to it, right? Because you're not closing your mind into everything is bad and nothing will happen. You open that up, and now you have this empowerment happening because all of a sudden you'll start reaching out, relationships are happening. The conversations that you're hearing are going to be positive.
Yeah.
It's what you focus on expands, and it's amazing what our minds can do and control for our internal, overall environment. What realities do we live in?
I know. It's like my preacher said when I was growing up. He said there is a wolf and a lamb inside of you. It just depends on which one you decide to feed that survives. Michael, I think that so many people need to hear this message in this moment. If our listeners remember nothing else about what you have said today, what would you like them to remember?
Stay in gratitude. Live in gratitude, because when you do, you change, you shift your whole world. You can create a completely different reality around you if you're staying curious and you're staying in gratitude, because you will see more opportunity. You will, money is the byproduct of who you are and what you do. And if you don't focus on money, but focus on relationships, focusing on helping people, right? The 5 best words of English language. How can I help you? Right? If you stay in that attitude and mindset, then the world is basically will open up, and you will see amazing opportunity come your way from the universe, and you can achieve anything that you can, want, if you're helping other people achieve what they need.
So, again, total squirrel brain direction. To all the most of our listeners are women, but ladies, get your husbands to listen to this next section. What advice would you give to dads of young girls?
Be curious. Be curious about why they are who they are, why they're behaving the way they do, and spend time with them. I teach my kids a lot we play like cash flow quadrants, for example, because I want them to understand money in a different way, right? We set goals together. One of the best practices that a friend of mine taught me a while ago, And we do it on a regular basis. It's called a rose, a thorn, and a sprout.
Oh, yeah. Tell me about it.
So on a regular basis, whether you do it daily or weekly, but you have to do it often, you sit down with your family, you sit down with your kids. What was beautiful about today, or what was beautiful about this week? That's the rose. And you talk about it, right? You make them focus on these details that are important, because what people do is they say, okay, we're going to be in gratitude. We have that as a checklist, and we're going to check it off. We said our gratitude and we're done. I want you to live in it, right? So when you start doing this practice, so a rose is something beautiful. What did you accomplish that was amazing? And it doesn't have to be earth shattering. You know, you had a great ballet recital. It was amazing. You worked hard. It was beautiful. It was amazing.
You got to put on a costume and makeup, all the things.
Whatever that case may be, right? And then what was the thorn? Because we all have that, right? What didn't work your way? You know, we talked about John Maxwell behind me. He has another book that's called Sometimes You Win, Sometimes You Learn.
Yeah.
You don't lose. You only fail if you stop.
Yes.
Right. But if we take the opportunity to learn from mistakes, or we learn from anything that's going on, we can be better tomorrow than we were today. Mm-hmm. Right. So that's the thorn. And then the sprout, what ideas can we work on? What things can we nurture? Because our minds are kind of like the garden, mm-hmm. right? We have to nurture the soil. We have to plant the seeds of growth. And it's not instant gratification. And this is a big mistake that I think a lot of people go through when they, you know, when we talk about marriage, when we talk about parenting, when we talk about money, we want instant. You know, we get together, we build a relationship, we want instant, awesome marriage. Well, it's work. You have to nurture it. You have to nurture that relationship. Yeah. Parenting, the same thing. No one is amazing parent from day one.
Yes, I know. I was just listening to the Goop podcast the other day, and Elise Noonan, the host, says, I wasn't a natural mother, and gave herself that profound permission to say that in front of millions of people. And you know what the guest said? She said, no one is. No one is a natural parent. Yes. No one. You have to learn it. You know, I mean, I talked to my stepbrother, and his wife just had a baby. And I called him and I said, hey, how's it going, man? And he said, well, we're learning how to keep the baby alive. And I thought, yes, you are. You're learning how to keep the baby alive. No one is a natural born parent. So give yourself permission to say that. Thank you for saying that on the show. That is profound.
Yeah. Give yourself permission. You know, give yourself permission to do things, right? To learn.
And to fail forward.
Yeah, fail forward. Exactly. Because a lot of us, what we were doing is we struggle with something, right? Or we hit a bump in the road and we go, oops, yeah, I'm not perfect at it. I'm not going to do it. Done, right? And we start comparing ourselves. And the problem is we compare your chapter 1 to somebody's chapter 40. Yeah. And we go, oh yeah, I can't do that. Well, you might, because it took them 10 years. You might get there in 5. Give yourself permission to learn and to grow and take time. Be kind to yourself. Yes. And you know, from parenting, be kind to your kids.
Yes.
And be kind to each other, because you give space. You know, it's not a perfect kind of place all the time, right? We get frustrated, we get all this stuff. But if you're intentional about being curious at all times, stepping away, giving yourself permission to make mistakes, amazing things will happen. From, you know, being healthier, being psychologically healthier, being wealthier, whatever you want to achieve, you can, if you allow yourself to.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh man, Michael, we could go for hours. Yeah. We are now best friends, which is what podcasting is all about. Cool. Before I let you go, you ready for some lightning round questions?
Sure.
What is your number 1 strength?
Positivity.
What is the thing you struggle with the most?
Staying on task, being focused.
Oh, yeah, squirrel brain all over the place. I got you. If you could give advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Live in abundance. The pie, you know, I know it's a lightning round, but when I was younger and working on Wall Street, I focused on the slice of the pie, and we competed for the slice of the pie. The pie is infinite. It's huge.
Yeah,
Just
your job
allow
is
your-
not to get the biggest piece of the pie. Your job is to bake more pies and give them
Yes.
away to other people. That's
Yeah.
your job. Yes, I got
Yeah.
you. Yeah, live in abundance. I love that. Who has been your greatest inspiration?
I'm being very intentional about surrounding myself by the right people so I can learn from. I always want to be the not the youngest or the slowest, but I don't want to be the smartest person in a room. I
You
want to
don't.
surround
You
myself.
want to be in a room where people are smarter than you and make way more flipping money than you do. That's
Sure.
the room you want to be in all day,
Absolutely.
all day.
I always want to be a learner, right? I'm a lifelong learner, so
So tons of inspiration from all over the place.
tons of
it sounds
inspiration
like.
from it. Tony Robbins, John Maxwell. Quite frankly, my wife,
Yeah.
who's been amazingly strong, and she's 10 times the entrepreneur that I am. So it's kind of cool.
And you guys trust each other clearly, or else you would not have made a decision as mutual partners, as
Yep.
an equal partnership for you to leave your incredibly high paying job and go out on your own.
And that partnership is so important. You got to be a partner in the family, and the way we treat our kids the same way is they're equal parts, so they can have a discussion, they can have a voice, and they can have an opinion, and they should. And we encourage that.
Absolutely. What keeps you up at night?
Kids.
Yes,
Yeah,
I know. Worrying. That is every parent I have on the show. It's, am I doing the best for my children? Am I really investing in their future? Last question. God to you is?
God to me is. It's an interesting question. God to me is someone who is given us choices, and we can take them where we may, but the choices are there, the opportunities are there, and the possibilities are there. So I think, that's I'll kind of leave it there.
Yeah. Again, like my preacher said, my preacher's a very wise man, and he would say, you can rely on well, Jesus may come back tomorrow, but he gave you enough brains to plan for the future,
Right.
know? And I love that. We always want to live in that optimistic, everything is going to work out. But God gave you enough sense to do well by your money, well by your children, well by your wife, all of the things. So, Michael Trefel, it has been a huge honor to talk to you. You can find Michael at www.trefel consulting. That's trefelconsulting.com. Thank you so much for being a guest on the Lindsey Elmore Show.
It's been a pleasure. Thank you for having me, Lindsey.
Deciding which Young Living product is right for you should not be hard. Unfortunately, it can be completely overwhelming because there's so many products to choose from and so many different opinions online. I've partnered up with a company called Essential Genome to bring you a privacy-insured DNA test kit that looks at your actual genetics to decide which areas of your life you may need more support in and which areas of your wellness you may already be a rock star. Knowing that DNA, we then correlate that to Young Living products that help you to decide in which areas of your wellness you need the most support. Head over to www.essentialgenome.com and let them know I sent you by using the code LES at checkout. Best of all, you can select from just getting a report, this is the right option if you have done a DNA test kit in the past and simply want to upload your results. Or you can choose from a privacy-insured DNA test kit and the report in combination. The test is easy to do at your home. You simply swab the inside of your cheek and mail it back to them, and they generate your DNA and give you the report on which Young Living products you might need to support your body. So head on over www.essentialgenome.com and let them know I sent you by using the code LES to save $30 at checkout. Today I want to talk to you a little bit about conscious language. Based on discoveries made through neural mapping of the limbic system, there is a neurobiological explanation of human emotion. And we process our emotions as either pleasant or unpleasant mental states. Well, these pleasant and unpleasant mental states are actually hardwired within the limbic system of our brain. It is different than the reactive systems that we find within reptiles, and it's also very different in the way that we become aroused by our emotions. What we see is that depending on our emotional state, we may find that we have different neurochemicals present in our body. We might have dopamine, we might have norepinephrine or serotonin, depending on what our brain's activity levels are. This can manifest in physical behaviors. It can manifest as our brain's activity level, in our body movements, in our gestures, in our postures. Our emotions can also give off pheromones, which can attract love or can give off the aromas of fear. So in a beautiful experiment, there was a guy named Lovheim, and he came up with Lovheim's cube of emotions. And what he found was there were different levels of neurotransmitters present depending on what emotions were being felt. So when we have an absence of norepinephrine, dopamine, and serotonin, we feel that as shame and humiliation. When we have high levels of our norepinephrine and our serotonin and the dopamine, well, guess what? That drives us towards interest and excitement. If we have, a lot of dopamine, but no noradrenaline and no serotonin, that is where, guess what? We get paralyzed in fear. People talk about fight or flight, but it's not fight or flight. It's fight, flight, or freeze. When we have a ton of adrenaline on top of that fear and terror, well, guess what that leads us to? That leads us to anger and rage. Well, what if we took the adrenaline out of the norepinephrine out of the equation, and we had a lot of dopamine and a lot of serotonin, but no norepinephrine? Well, that leads us to joy and enjoyment. And so what has become clear to me over the course of my years as a yogi, as an essential oil user, and as someone who just tries to tap into their emotions and actually feel all the feels, is that for every negative emotion, there is an equal and opposite positive emotion. And when we think about, if you create like a T in your mind, a cross in your mind, at the top of it is activation. We're activated. We're at life of the party. We are wide awake. There's also deactivation. So deactivation is when we're feeling maybe a little bit sleepier, or we're feeling a little bit more relaxed or sedate. Every spectrum along that activation versus deactivation has gradients where on the opposite, so that's your y-axis. Well, on your x-axis, you have negative versus positive. So often with the way that we talk to ourselves, we tend towards the negative spectrum as far as being like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm so tense, I'm so nervous, I'm so stressed. Well, what if you stopped and you transformed and you tried to take that adrenaline down and drive you more towards your dopamine and serotonin, or conversely, aimed to keep that adrenaline high, keep that excitement, that activation high, but you aimed to use your language to create new ways to drive dopamine levels higher, serotonin levels higher, perhaps by sitting and meditating a moment. What if instead of being tense, you were simply alert? Or what if instead of being nervous to go on stage and speak in front of people, you were genuinely excited about it? What if instead of being stressed, you were so happy? Somebody told me the other day, stop saying, I have to do these things, and just say, I get to do these things. I woke up this morning and I was like, woe is me, hair and makeup yet again. And I was like, you know what? I get to do my hair and makeup and sit in front of a camera in my own terms and make a podcast episode about the importance of conscious language. How blessed am I? Take your language in a different direction. The same can be done for our deactivated emotions. Deactivated emotions are not a bad thing. We actually need them in our lives. But there's no need to describe yourself as sad. You can be sad. That is true. There are times when it is appropriate to be sad. There are times when it is appropriate to be fatigued. If you suffer from depression, there are times that you are genuinely depressed. But even in this deactivated state, we have a choice about how we talk to ourselves. What if instead of being sad, we were serene? What if instead of being depressed, we were relaxed? What if instead of being fatigued and worn out and burned out, we were calm? Changing the way that we speak to ourselves can change our conscious perception of how we understand our relationships to our own emotions. You can use tons of yoga postures to shift this perspective as well. If you're feeling fatigued and you still got 3 more hours of the workday, just stand up from your desk and bring your knee to your nose, or bring your arms out parallel to the ground in front of you and bring that right knee to that right palm and that left knee to that left palm. Moving your body can also create conscious shifts within the way that we perceive our emotions. If you are feeling, oh my God, I'm stressed, I'm nervous, I'm tense, how can you sit down for a moment and just meditate with that nervous energy and transform it into alertness, transform it into work and motivation? I don't know if I've told you this story before. I've told it a lot of times, but when I first started my company, my essential oil education company, I remember sitting in my living room floor, shaking in fear and terror because I didn't know what I was getting into. Well, remember, fear and terror are nothing more than having too much norepinephrine as well as dopamine without enough serotonin. So I sat on the floor and I meditated for a moment. I might have taken child's pose or maybe a supported bridge pose for a moment. And it put me back in the perception of all you're doing right now is making one spreadsheet. You're making one spreadsheet. Don't make this more complicated than it has to be. Just sit down and make this one spreadsheet. Now, you may say, well, Lindsey, how does this work? The limbic system does not speak in words. But remember, our emotions are thought to be related to activities in our brain that help to direct our attention, to motivate our behaviors, and determine the significance of what is going on around us. We know that emotional structures within the center of our brain, including the hypothalamus, the cingulate cortex, and the hippocampi, really help to determine what it is that we find important in the world around us. These limbic system structures directly impact our emotions. And when we speak to ourselves in uplifting words, words that are filled with gratitude and with love, and words that are filled with serenity and calm, this can help us to transform from a negative connotation of emotions to a positive connotation of our emotions. You know, we all face stress, and stress is really bad because in today's society, we live in sympathetic overdrive. We are bombarded by continuous stressors, and we know that long term, when we're under stress, we become immunosuppressed. We're less able to fight infection. We get chronic inflammation, and this causes us to age more rapidly, to experience anxiety and fear and abnormal metabolism, which then makes us fat, which then makes us sicker and also less likely to fight infection, more immunosuppressed, all of it. Stress manifests in so many ways. It could be headache, it could be backache, it could be high blood pressure, it could be anemia, it could be all of those things. But when we take a moment to meditate on conscious language, you know, my meditation this morning, the only thing I meditated on was, I am so grateful. I'm so grateful. And that was all I kept saying to myself was, I am grateful. I am grateful. I am grateful. That helps to change both the structure and the function of your brain. When you combine slow rhythmic breathing alongside mindful movements and conscious language of accepting I am where I am, this can actually dramatically change our own perceptions of our emotions. When we practice slow rhythmic breathing, it increases parasympathetic tone as well as vagal tone. It improves our heart rate variability. It increases prolactin and oxytocin secretion, helping us to be more interconnected with one another. It helps to decrease our stress hormone, cortisol. And it may even decrease some of that norepinephrine output, which is driving us into those states of distress and of anguish and of rage. It helps us to mediate and to ensure that our levels of norepinephrine, of dopamine, and of serotonin are all in balance. So we find those moments of enjoyment and pleasure and love within our daily lives. Speak kind words to yourself. If you find yourself saying unkind words, stop yourself and remember that you are your own best friend. Be your best friend and remind yourself, don't talk about my friend that way. I happen to love her. She happens to be of great value in this world.
The Lindsey Elmore Show is written and produced by me, Lindsey Elmore. Show segments are produced by Sue Procco and Kelsey Lorman. Production design, sound design, and editing is by Jive Media. If you have a question about this or any other episode of the podcast, send us an email to hello@lindseyelmoreshow.com. And hey, since you're still here, take a moment to subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And while you're at it, go over and follow us on Instagram @Lindsey Elmore Show. This helps us bring the pod to more people.